we're dealing with our group of members who are famous members, of course. Explorers Club members. We're first to the North Pole, first to the South Pole, first to the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest, first to the lowest place in the Mariana Trench, first into space, first onto the moon. So that I think the attitude of the members has always been of this series. This is called the Legend Series. We have many legendary explorers, one of whom you're going to be meeting and hearing from today. And we want to preserve the archive, in our archives, for future scholars and future members, what great work they have done, and have a personal conversation with them.
You're an explorer. If they said, Buzz, we got a trip for you one way to Mars right now, would you go?
I'm a little old. That's the age limit.
But if they said, we're going to make an exception.
Oh, but I'm a sprint man. See, I like to
3 days instead of 8 months?
No, a pole vaulter doesn't want to run a mile or 2 miles. He wants to get it over with in a hurry.
So the answer is no.
The answer is, the question is absurd.
Thank you.
I'm Alan Nichols, the president of the Explorers Club, and it's going to be an exciting evening tonight as you find out how the Pharaoh type of governance came about.
So here we have a comparison of seals from Mesopotamia, from the Uruk culture of Susa, and then ones from Egypt over on this side. And you can see that there are lots of similarities.
So I want to, of course, thank Jim Cameron. This is going to be the tale of two Jims, so we better distinguish them. James Cameron and James Clash. But you know, Challenger Deep is a tremendous experience. Jim has been a longtime member of the Explorers Club, and we so much appreciate his coming and allowing us to have this fabulous event. Welcome here, and take it away, Jim.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Jim, for coming.
Thanks for having me. There's so many targets. I mean, the thing you've got to remember about these Hadal trenches is you've got the depths from 6,000 meters, which is the bottom of the abyssal zone, you know, which is a huge area of the seafloor, down to the deepest trenches. It's called the Hadal depths, and that's down at 11,000 meters. So that only constitutes a couple of % of the total seafloor, but it's an area that's about as great as North America.
I think if you're a curious person, you're curious not only about the geographic exploration, which we could look at as macro, but you're curious about the micro, which is laboratory and medicines and food and purity and things like that. Exploration can go both directions. It can go onto the International Space Station and be on something that is micro, right, that will benefit people right here. It can be something as people traditionally have wondered what's around the next bend in the river, what's over the next hill over here. And so the Explorers Club and others went out and tried to do this. But the basis of the whole thing is that you're exercising your curiosity about the world around us and what we can do about it, how we can live in it better. And so I think that's where the Explorers Club plays a very vital role in this. I think that as long as you in the Explorers Club, or we in the Explorers Club, keep curiosity at a high level, then I think you're doing a great job.
I want to get this man, Charlie Duke, to ask a question because this guy's informed and he'll have a good question for Scott. Charlie, come up with a good question.
Scott's been a friend for a long time, and it was just fascinated by this interview. And you asked me before, did I have a good question? And the answer was no, I didn't have a good question. But
now you do.
Yeah. You know, later on, Scott, we all had various additional duties, if you would call it, in the astronaut office. I followed the propulsion systems, the development of Saturn. Stu Roos and I after the fire, did the emergency egress working group. In Mercury, I know that you all had such power to affect the design and stuff. Did each of you look at different systems, or did everybody just look at sort of the overall development of the Mercury?
We all looked at all the systems in those days, Charlie, but that was a small aircraft, it's a small spacecraft. And the systems weren't all that involved, but we all had an interest in them all. And the schedule at NASA at that time allowed us to do that, to extend our interest across the face of that little capsule. There were some assignments made. Gus Grissom, for instance, had control, flight control, and Al Shepard had recovery. I'm not sure what the others had. I had communications and navigation, and that drew on what I'd done with the Navy in my aviation work. Everybody was assigned some specialty that they needed to report to NASA and the rest of us as a group. I think it was a very well managed, young, small program.
We have time for one more question.
Yeah, and I'm going to put Don Walsh on the spot here, and Don knows a lot about the oceans, and obviously you were an aquanaut. Don, ask him a question about the oceans.
I can't tell Don Walsh anything about the ocean.
He's going to have a good question, though.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people, Scott, have asked you before, which do you like the best? You were floating around in 2 fluid mediums as an explorer, pioneer. The work you did in Sealab was, top form, because a lot of people don't realize that you were probably the most durable aquanaut, because you were down there longer, and you were kind of the father figure. I was going to say the mother superior, but of course the father superior. No, I mean you were an adult in a program that sometimes needed adults. You know how. Wait a minute. Now you know how divers are. They're almost as bad as carrier pilots, and so you had a lot bigger role in that program. A lot of people appreciate. There's a recent book out now about Sealab. You've probably seen it. And it gives you a lot of long overdue credit. It's not a question, that's a micro speech, but I'd just like to shout out, we've been talking a lot about space here, as we should, but you also had a big leadership role in that. It's just too bad that the Man in the Sea project didn't go beyond Sealab 2, and Sealab 3 didn't work because there was an unfortunate fatality, and ideas changed. But you were a real pioneer in that Man in the Sea kind of thing, and I salute you for that. I don't have a question.
You did start with a question. Which did you like better?
Well, wait, yeah, no, I didn't. That was a statement. That was a statement because I said you've probably been asked that a lot, so I implied that I'm not going to be one more to add to that burden, but I'll ask it. What did you like?
I was conflicted and have always been in conflict with the preference. I cannot make up my mind which I love the most. And I prefer, to tell you the truth, not choosing one over the other. I have an original loyalty to both. And I don't want to diminish those loyalties by mentioning any other loyalty. So I can't answer your question, Don.
Sounds like a guy running for office.
That is a perfect ending for this extraordinary presentation. We want to thank Scott Carpenter and Jim for getting us in on this piece of history. And this history has been recorded. It'll be in our archives for the next 100 years. And I'm sure the scholars and the explorers are going to still be inspired by the work of Scott Carpenter. Thank you, Scott, for coming.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, Scott. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.